To our professor, Dr. Mendoza. Classmates, good day to everyone. This is Arlie Joy Clarete Bones, and today we will discuss about clauses. Clause is a group of words that contains at least one subject and predicate. A simple sentence can be made up of just one clause, but most sentences have more than one clause. For example, number 1, I woke up early this morning. The sentence has only one single clause. While the second one, she got ready for school quickly when her alarm clock rang. The second sentence has more than one clause, or we call it compound clause. We begin with a category we call a complementizer phrases, or CP. These are phrases that contain a complementizer C, like the word that, followed by a constituent which we can call a tense phrase, or TP. For the moment, the name CP is meant to evoke some connection with the complementizer. But we have not seen why this is a good name. Consider a few examples of CPs. Number 1, you will see that the girl will put a picture on your desk. Number 2, I doubt that Mary reads mysteries. Number 3, he muttered why the visitors will leave. 4, the fact that John is snoring is informative. 5, the man that Mary saw knew me. 6, that the visiting team won the race could surprise them. The constituency test identified as bracketed strings as constituents. We see that we can be replaced. The constituency test identified as bracketed strings as constituents. We see that some can be replaced by a pronoun it. They can be coordinated. In some contexts, they can be elided. Looking inside the CPs, we see familiar structures too. The sentence in the CP indicated in number 1 is much like the ones investigated in the previous chapter. Now we will be more careful in our labeling of the clause level constituents. To begin, we seem to have this kind of structure. The sister of C is what we called a sentence in the previous chapters, and we labeled it as. But let's leave this constituent unlabeled for the moment. In the previous discussion, we mentioned that we would call the constituent that contains T and VP a T bar. Notice that the complementizer that is different from what is usually called a demonstrative that. I like that, student. That is what you should see. Notice that the demonstrative occurs in a position where other determiners can occur. The this, and etc. But no determiners can go in the position of that in the tree drawn above. The complementizer that is also different from the that in sentences like this one. That is a complementizer, a word with 3 phonemes in it. Here, the italics signifies that we are using that to refer to itself, to the very word that. In this sentence, that is a special kind of name, sometimes called a quotation name, because quotes are often used instead of italics to signal this use. Notice that the quotation name can be replaced by a pronoun like it, but the complementizer shown in the tree above cannot be replaced by it. The complementizer that is also different from the that in sentences like this one. That is a complementizer, a word with 3 phonemes in it. Here, the italics signifies that we are using that to refer to itself, to the very word that. In this sentence, that is a special kind of name, sometimes called a quotation name, because quotes are often used instead of italics to signal this use. Notice that the quotation name can be replaced by a pronoun like it, but the complementizer shown in the tree above cannot be replaced by it. The complementizer that has a special role which we will understand better once we compare it with some other complementizers. First, recall that we already saw reasons to support the idea that a string dominated by CP is indeed a constituent. For example, it is easy to verify that this string can be topicalized or conjoined with a comparable string. It is also easy to verify that the CP constituent above forms a constituent with the verb see, as our tree structures assumes VP topicalization, VP ellipsis, or coordination with another VP would show this easily. This makes it reasonable to assume, as we done, that the constituent that we are calling a CP can occur as the sister to a verb like see in number 1. Various other verbs occur here too, but the range is restricted. We have here, you will claim that the girl will put a picture there. You can also use you, the word say. You will say that the girl will put a picture there. Or you will hope that the girl will put a picture there. Or you will believe that the girl will put a picture there. Or the other one is see. You will see that a girl will put a picture there. Or you will whisper. Is that correct? That the girl will put a picture there. You will kick, that the girl will put a picture there. You will sleep, that the girl will put a picture there. Or you will run, that the girl will put a picture there. The verbs that occur most naturally in this context seem to be verbs of saying and believing. Verbs that describe a relation between a subject and a proposition of some kind. Informally speaking, a proposition describes a state of affair that can be true or false. For example, the sentence John is here describes a state of affair that can be true or false. One can say or have an attitude towards these propositions, such as believing it or doubting it. These attitudes verbs are different from verbs that denote physical actions or states. Some verbs allow a different elements to seemingly occur in the complementizer position, but this possibility varies with the choice of verb. We have here examples. John knows that she laughed. John knows if she laughed. John knows whether she laughed. John wonders that she laughed. John wonders if she laughed. John wonders whether she laughed. John thinks that she laughed. John thinks if she laughed. John thinks whether she laughed. First, it would be easy to establish that the string following the verbs knows, wonders, and thinks form a VP constituent. With these verbs and also our constituents, are these constituents CP? How do we determine the identity of a constituent? One way is to use an experiment that unambiguously applies to known constituent type. We have assumed that VP proposing or VP ellipsis is like this. Substitutability by a personal pronoun is characteristic of DPs, while one replacement identifies NP. Another powerful option is coordination, since successful coordination requires categorical identity of the conjuncts. This last approach identify allows us to draw the conclusion that the strings that she left and whether she will come back are both CPs. If the first one is, John knows that she left. John knows whether she will come back. John knows that she left and whether she will come back. John knows that she left and John knows whether she will come back. The idea that, if, and whether play a similar role and thus are the same category also receives some support from the fact that only one of these elements can occur at a time, even with verbs like know or say, which allow any one of the three to occur. You should say that she left. You should say if she left. You should say whether she left. You should say if whether she left. You should say that if she left. You should say whether that she left. This fits with the idea that there is a single structural position that can be filled with any one of these elements, but not more than once. In these examples, we begin to see the justification for calling expressions like that she left a CP. This constituent has a pronoun and a verb in it too. Why not call the constituent an NP or DP or VP? We see in the previous examples that surprisingly, the little words are calling complementizers C played a critical role in determining the distribution of what we are calling CPs. The constructions above are not sensitive to changes in their subjects. John knows that she left. John knows if the student left. John knows whether all 10 of the people I know left. John wonders that she left. John wonders if the student left. John wonders whether all 10 of the people I know left. John thinks that she left. John thinks if the student left. John thinks whether all 10 of the people I know left. The distribution of the CPs is not sensitive to changes in the VP either. John knows that she left. John knows if she wants to visit Paris. John knows whether she kicks a perfect goal every time. John wonders that she left. John wonders if she wants to visit Paris. John wonders whether kicks a perfect goal every time. John thinks that she left. John thinks if she wants to visit Paris. John thinks whether she kicks a perfect goal every time. The relation that we have identified between C and CP is the second property. This is why we call the phrase a CP. The C is the head of the CP because it has these properties, similar to the heads of words we saw in morphology. In all the examples here, the complementizers seem to combine with the constituent that we call a sentence in the previous chapters. But if we extend our survey of clauses a little further, we find that there may be some variation here too. That is, we find some complementizers that combine with clauses that are not usually called sentences. So far, we have seen that CPs can occur as the sister of V. We have here, John said whether she left. I doubt if she kicks perfect goals every time. They think that she can do it. The same CPs can occur as subjects of sentences, as we see in examples like this. Whether she left is most unclear. That the girl put a picture there proves her guilt. So it looks like both CPs and DPs can be the subject of a sentence. Note that both the notion of a sentence and the notion of the subject are used informally until we define them later. Now, compare the following examples to the structures above. I prefer for the girl to put a picture there. For the girl to put a picture there is what I prefer. For the girl to put a picture there would surprise you. In 24, it seems that a certain kind of attitude preference is being described as holding between the subject and the proposition or state of affairs of the girl putting a picture there. In 25, we see that the constituent following the verb can be pseudoclifted. And we see that the constituent can occur as the subject of the sentences too. Sentences similar to those in 23. This suggests that the structure of 24 is similar to the structure of 1. So we propose the following tree for the 24 similar to the tree for 1 also. Here, the verb prefer has a CP with the complementizer for, while in the tree before, we had the verb see with the complementizer that. The only surprising idea here is that 2 should be labeled T, the way will is in the earlier tree. If we take 4 to be a complementizer, it should be a complementary distribution with other complementizers. It is not so easy to see right away because the other complementizers seem to occur with different sentence type, tense instead of infinitive. But we will see later that this is correct. Furthermore, we should expect that the CPs which have for as complementizer should occur in environment with other CPs down to will, which we will see this later as well. Let us now turn to the fact that we label 2 as T. We can support this idea by noticing that when this 2 occurs, neither will nor any other tense, future, present, past can occur. I prefer for the girl to win. I prefer for the girl to will win. I prefer for the girl to wins. I prefer for the girl to won. Furthermore, the verb to win is the infinitive, tenseless form of the verb, and so from this perspective, it is not unnatural to think that 2 fills the tense position as a kind of zero value. If T is filled with 2, the clause is infinitival. VP ellipsis provides further support for the view that the position of 2 is outside of the VP, exactly the way will is. Like the will in that clauses, the 2 cannot be elided. That Anne will go out every night is expected, but I cannot believe that Sophie will go out of the night. Will go out of the night is being elided. That Anne will go out every night is expected, but I cannot believe that Sophie will go out every night. For Anne to go out every night is expected, but I wouldn't like for Sophie to go out every night. For Anne to go out every night is expected, but I wouldn't like for Sophie to go out every night. Like the complementizer that, the infinitival to could be confused with other words that sound the same. We should avoid this. For example, in number 30, we will see that 2 can occur as a preposition in a position where other prepositions could occur. Let's walk to the beach. Let's walk on the beach. Let's walk near the beach. Notice that none of these other prepositions could replace the T to in 24. There are also other words that sound the same but are spelled differently, words which clearly cannot appear in the structural position T. I ran on the beach too. I ran on the beach also. He works too extremely hard. The 2 sunbathers went swimming. The 3 sunbathers went swimming. The infinitival to has a special role in the grammar, a role that it places in the T position which is relative to the tense of the clause. Summarizing, we see now that there is a range of complementizers that, if, whether, for, which combine with certain clausal constituents. I hope that Mary wins. They know if Mary won. I wonder whether Mary will win. They prefer for Mary to live. We notice that the subject Mary can be replaced by other subjects like I hope that the student wins. I hope that some exciting persons wins. I hope that no one from Antarctica wins. And the verb phrase win can be replaced by other verbs phrases. I hope that Mary wins. I hope that Mary kicked a perfect goal. I hope that Mary gets a chance to have a vacation in Antarctica. What the complementizer care about is not what the subject is or what the VP is, but what the tense is. Like in number 37, they hope that Mary will win. They hope that Mary won. They hope that Mary wins. They hope that Mary to win. Summarizing, we see now that there is a range of complementizers that, if, whether, for, which combine with certain clausal constituents. I hope that Mary wins. They know if Mary won. I wonder whether Mary will win. They prefer for Mary to live. We notice that the subject Mary can be replaced by other subjects like I hope that the student wins. I hope that some exciting persons wins. I hope that no one from Antarctica wins. And the verb phrase win can be replaced by other verbs phrases. I hope that Mary wins. I hope that Mary kicked a perfect goal. I hope that Mary gets a chance to have a vacation in Antarctica. What the complementizer care about is not what the subject is or what the VP is, but what the tense is. Like in number 37, they hope that Mary will win. They hope that Mary won. They hope that Mary wins. They hope that Mary to win. They prefer for Mary will win. They prefer for Mary won. They prefer for Mary wins. They prefer for Mary to win. So what should we call the constituents like Mary will win or Mary to win? We call them TPs because their distribution is primarily governed by their tense. They cannot occur as a main sentence or with that if they have non-zero finite tense, past tense, future, present, and past, and they cannot occur with only one if they are infinitival or negative tense. While that and if require finite or tense or TP, and for requires a tense TP, we can see that whether allows either one. John wonders whether Mary will win. John wonders whether to win. Whether she will win is a question Mary never considered. Whether to win is a question Mary never considered. We will return to explore more of the properties of these different structures later, but some of the basic outlines of clause structures are becoming clearer and simpler than they may have seemed at first. Our constituency test showed that the TPs have a structure like this: D, P, and T. V, CP, C, TP, D, P, T, VP. We now have the label TP because the T determines the distribution of the phrase. But what should we call the constituent T and VP? This element contains the T that we would like to regard as the head of the TP. And so we call this constituent as T bar. So we can now provide labels for all the constituents in the trees we shown earlier in the chapter. Notice that we have labeled the roots of these trees TP. What we called sentences in the previous chapters are now properly labeled past tense or TPs. Now we can return to consider the role of heads of phrases. The head of a constituent determines the category of the constituent. determines the distribution of the constituent where it can occur, and selects certain constituents to combine with. In CPs, we see now that the head C does not simply combine with sentences, but rather it cares about the tense of the constituent it combines with. And so we call these constituents TPs, the complementizer that selects plus tense TPs, and the complementizer for selects negative tense TPs. None of these properties are necessary. These are empirical claims about how human languages work. In general, our convention for labeling constituents will be this. A head of category X sometimes combines with certain other constituents and controls the distribution of the whole complex. The maximal extension of the string that is controlled by the head in this way is called the maximal projection or phrasal projection of this head and is labeled XP. The DP or CP sister of T bar is called the subject or specifier of T. We use these notions in the structural sense. The subject of the TP is the constituent, which is a sister of T bar and the daughter of TP. The VP sister of T is called the complement of T. We will use these structural configurational terms to refer to constituents like this for all categories: X, XP, subject, X, and X complement. Various notions of subject. The subject of a clause is the DP or the CP that occurs in a particular configuration as sisters of T. One property that subjects have in English is agreement with the finite verb. With regular verbs of English, this is visible only in the third person singular present tense. We will see a number of other properties of the structural subject position later. In the linguistic literature, the term subject is used in many different ways, and so it is important to pay attention to what is meant. The notion just defined is a purely structural one, and one that is much less common than the different notion of logical subject or agent of a sentence. Roughly, the person or thing that does this action describes by the verb. For example, in our sense of subject, Mary is the subject of number 46, but the paper is the subject of 47, even though the agent of the action is the same. Mary cuts the paper easily. The paper is cut by Mary. The paper cuts easily. In 48, the paper is again the subject, even though the agent of the action is not mentioned at all. Constructions like 46 are called active. Constructions like 47 are called passives. And constructions like 48 are called middles. We will have more to say about passive and middles construction later. In the clauses we have considered so far, T almost always have the subject. The single exception we have seen are in CPs such as whether, to win, which we will return later. T always has a complement VP, though we have already seen that the VP can be deleted in VP ellipsis constructions. A plus tense plus T requires a nominative subject, while a tense T requires an accusative subject. This is the case property we mentioned earlier, which is visible on pronouns in English. He is the nominative case, him is the accusative case. That he won the race could surprise them. That him won the race could surprise them. For him to win the race would surprise them. For he to win the race would surprise them. English has various complementizers, that, if, whether, and for. The complementizers if, whether form CPs that express indicative questions. To distinguish them from the others, we can mark them with the feature plus Q for questions or plus WH because many English questions for words such as who, what, where, when begin by WH. The complementizer is that for form declarative CPs. That if select finite plus tense TP complementizers or complements. Or selects infinitive, tense or TP complement. Whether selects infinitive or finite plus tense TP complement. We have carefully avoided some questions that we should return to later. For example, what is in the position of the tense T in the sentences like A and B below? John saw Mary. Harry likes music. And John saw Mary. Harry likes movies. In sentences like this, it looks like tense of the verb are not separated the way they are in the future. John will leave, or in the infinitive clauses, for Mary to leave on time is important. Again, this is Arlie Joy C. Bonus. Thank you for listening. Goodbye!